Please welcome Virginia.
I'm good. Welcome, everyone. And, Diego and Chuck and Reen warmed you up, which is great. So I feel like I've got a bit of clickbait on my title here. It's something I really care about, and it's leveraging FHIR. But it's actually a celebration, because at least in my country, there's something to leverage. So, woo! So who am I? So I'm Virginia Lorenzi, and I work at New York Presbyterian Hospital. I have been there a very long time. Before that, I was a software developer developing EHRs, and before that, I worked software developer on networks. But I've been at New York Presbyterian doing help IT at the hospital, where rubber hits the road for a very long time. I've been there 30 years. This is my 30th year anniversary this month. This means I'm old. I also teach at Columbia. I teach health IT at Columbia. I talk about FHIR and try to build community there. And I've had, and I've been part of the HL7 community this month, June 30th anniversary as well, and have served in several roles there. So one of the reasons why I was excited to do my intro is I just want you to know where I'm coming from. I have very much a user perspective, okay? I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse. People think I'm a doctor, they think I'm a nurse, I'm not. I am a geek who went on to the other side. And I work with all the nurses and the doctors and the pharmacists and all those other people that work at the hospital, the medical records people and the lawyers and the compliance people and the privacy people and the finance people, to try and help them have solutions that work 24 hours a day. The lab, pharmacy. So my objective today is for you to be able to go out and describe the benefits of leveraging FHIR in your environment. And you know where your environment is, what you think is, this is my place, this is my environment, this is where I'm trying to target. And then to actually have you be able to discuss obstacles that block the use of FHIR. And then I want you to be able to describe how to leverage FHIR in the United States. We're going to be very specific, because I'm from the United States, I use FHIR here. And how can you leverage FHIR in the United States? But this is a use case, because if you're not from the United States, learn from us the pluses, the minuses, and how you can leverage it. And then I want you to then, from that, reflect on how you can leverage FHIR in your specific environment. It's not going to be a country. It's going to be, I'm at this hospital. I'm trying to make a difference in the commercial lab space, wherever it is, with social determinants of health. How can you leverage FHIR? So I just want to start out with a little poll here, and I'd just like to know, in what country or region would you like to use FHIR? Can somebody just answer?
Everywhere.
Give me one. Give me one. I agree, but give me one country. Canada, okay, thank you. Anyone else want to use it in Canada? Okay, but be very specific, like greedy, like I really want to see it right here in this one space. And any other country? Yes? Italy, okay, great. Any other people interested in Italy? Japan, great. Okay, any other countries in the room? Or other places, regions? Fernando, how about where are you? Argentina. Okay. Anyone else in Argentina? Hi. Any other countries? Yes. What? Sweden? Brazil! Bom dia. Bom dia. Did I say it right? I'm trying. Okay, we'll talk later. I have an obsession with Brazilian Portuguese, so. Any other countries? Anyone interested in using the United States? Or for the United States? Raise your hands. So I want to know? Okay, okay, good. Okay, miss anyone? Sweden, excellent. England, wonderful. What? Finland, wonderful. Sorry, I got that wrong. I didn't hear you right. Denmark, excellent, beautiful. Spain, wonderful. Anywhere else? Switzerland, beautiful. What? Germany. India. So let's do it, right? Fire around the world. Okay, this is good. We all have these great dreams. And then we think, who can use fire? Who could really benefit from this? Well, please realize I'm raised in the United States, and so I sometimes will have this U.S. focus. You guys are going to keep me, you're going to expand my mind. But, I think providers, clinicians and provider organizations like hospitals and clinics and, pharmacies, whatever, they might benefit from using fire. Does it make sense? And vendors, health IT vendors in this space, they could really benefit from using fire, right? And patients could benefit from using fire. And payors, I spelled that wrong, I think. Is it ER or OR? Really, I can't figure it out. Is it ER or OR? It's both? It's gray? There we go. So I have used the English spelling of payor here. Researchers. I spend a lot of time with researchers that are interested in fire. Public health authorities. Who am I missing? Anyone I'm missing on here? Pharmacy. There we go. Anyone else? Insurers. So payor is another word for insurer, I think, but maybe. What? Okay. Okay. Anyone else? Hospitals. So and my provider, I meant hospitals, but I'm glad you said that. Yeah. Apps. And I kind of would say with vendors, any kind of vendor that writes software, but I agree. And hi, it's nice to see you. What's that? Healthcare consultants. Very good. Oh, how did I miss that one? Bad, Virginia. I left off one that is really important to me because I was testing you and nobody said it. Yes? Care coordinators? Yeah, that's good. I like that. Anyone know what one I'm really passionate about? What? Family caregivers. Yeah, they're not the same as patients. Okay. So lots of different stakeholders, right? They could use fire, right? We see it. And how could fire help, right? Well, we talk about fire servers. If you have fire server capabilities, that allows you to connect and write software that can interact with large databases and software systems. This is amazing, right? It's amazing for the little guys, the little applications, the little pieces of software, because they can get access to data in ways they couldn't before, and they can get access and get integrated into these big software systems like they couldn't before. And for the people who are actually putting out those servers, now instead of having to deal with that guy and that guy and that guy, they just put out the server, right? And everyone can just connect to them. And then, maybe it'll create great add-ons to their software that way, right? It's a wonderful thing to leverage. I think this reminds me of like the Instagram model, right? Because like Instagram, it's kind of like symbiotic. You got those Instagram influencers. My daughter lived in Dubai for a while, and she said, it's all Instagram influencers, Ma. So the Instagram influencers, they have the big following, right? But then you have the ones that follow, right? When you have a fire server, you're like the Instagram influencer, right? And all these other people can connect with you and have a relationship with you, but you don't have to maintain each relationship with each individual person. But those little applications are important. One is they actually can be little with fire, right? They can fit on a phone. That's a big deal. But they could also just be pieces of code. They can be large. This is a really great opportunity, and you can make little niche solutions. And you could also integrate fire into workflow. And when I use the word workflow, I don't mean the workflow we talk about when we're at DevDays. I don't mean fire workflow. I mean workflow. I mean what people do every day at user sites. It may not even have to do with interoperability. I am trying to document that claim. I am trying to get an order in the system, get all the signatures I need to get this person in for surgery, whatever that workflow is, okay? And fire provides a way to integrate in, especially with that cool SMART-on-FHIR stuff. It's like, wow, really neat stuff. And also, we're seeing more of this business-to-business exchange use cases, where we are both client and server. We're doing subscriptions. It's so cool. And maybe even getting to like messaging. This is where we see like with kind of national network type stuff. All real cool, right? We see a lot of great opportunity here. But my question to you is why is stakeholder X not using FHIR today? Do you know stakeholder X? Let's talk about this. You know, it's that guy that they're over there on the left, and they have no FHIR really at all. Or maybe they started it and just fizzled out, and it's like that, right? Or maybe they're in the middle there, which is the most pitiful FHIR. Now, I actually love camping, and you know, I go out kind of camping alone, and I don't put a tent up anymore, but I put a mattress in a minivan, in a bomb of a minivan, mind you, and I go camping, and I build my own fires, and they look like that middle one. But I'm very proud of them. But still, they're pitiful. Then the little kid comes up and builds the bonfire, right? So I want to see that bonfire at the end, but I see, you know, instead this little one. So I want to ask you, does anyone know stakeholder X? That's one in the first two, the no FHIR or piddly FHIR. Who knows stakeholder X? Does anyone know a stakeholder X who doesn't have like FHIR, like where it's used everywhere in their system? It's like, of course we do FHIR. Of course, that's our bread and butter, we do FHIR. Does anyone know the stakeholder X that might have, I don't know, they have sort of an experimental thing they have going on at their organization? They have FHIR going because they have FHIR, they have successfully sacrificed to the regulatory gods. They turned on FHIR for the regulation, but they really don't actually use it. Tell me if anyone has met stakeholder X. Anyone? And everyone else here, FHIR is just doing amazing blazing everywhere. So if you've met stakeholder, come on, have you met stakeholder X? Come on. Okay. Because this lecture is dedicated to stakeholder X. Okay, and by the way, who here works or has worked for ONC or CMS? Okay. Okay, you're not so bad, because I might make a few jokes about the government. Okay. So why, and actually that was a memory test, why isn't stakeholder X engaging? Why aren't they using FHIR for everything? Like this is just, of course we use FHIR. Jeff?
Because it's not really well integrated into the EHR workflow.
Yes, it's not in workflow. You have no idea how important that is. It's not in EHR workflow. And I'm going to cover that a little more. Any other ones? What? It's not in the payor workflow. Yep, thank you. Anyone else? Why aren't they using FHIR? What? They have legacy systems that already work. They work. Yeah, good reason. Any other reason why they're not using FHIR? What? It's not mature, okay. Anything else? They're not letting people in. Does someone have a microphone? Yeah, do the microphone run, I'm sorry. This guy, he's the most fit person in the conference.
Maybe some software providers, they were trying to lock in their system out of the other players on the market with FHIR interoperability. They are afraid of to share the market to others.
Ah, so you're saying the providers, it's not really in their best interest, the best business
Exactly.
interest.
Yep.
Interesting. And there was one more, I think.
It's something that it's been implemented to check a regulatory checkbox so that people can be certified, and that's all that people have done with it.
Yes, yes. Yes? Sacrifice the gods.
In public
Yes?
health realm, it's still written into all of the HL7.2 is still written into all the grants. It's a requirement. It's a requirement of all the grants, HL7.2.
Did you say people use V2 now?
Yeah, what I'm trying to say is in the public health realm, it's all written into your grants is HL7.2.0. It's
Yes.
a requirement of the grant.
Not only it's just written into regs, that's what we're using. Legacy. One more.
So for us, for dialysis business, we don't have proper mapping for all the resource types. We have the challenge for modeling our data to the FHIR always.
I had trouble understanding.
So we have the dialysis business, correct? And we have the measurement data available from our machines, but we don't have the always proper resource mapping like observation or diagnostic report like that, where we can fit our data. So we try to mold it and try to choose any other object which is available in FHIR model, but we are not getting out of box any dialysis related resource type available in FHIR.
So sometimes it's because maybe FHIR doesn't have it, or maybe it's just the work and not understanding both and putting them together is actually a lot of work. So I'm going to talk about what I have on my list, okay? So lack of awareness. And yeah, you guys know about FHIR, right? But there are a lot of people that do not know about FHIR, and they do not know why it matters. And a big category, I believe, that doesn't really get how great FHIR is are people of power that can make decisions, okay? So awareness. So, and awareness matters. At my organization, which is a very large organization, when I first got there, see, I'm gonna tell you how old I am. I'm so old that I did interoperability without any standards whatsoever. And that was the norm. And I had learned, I'd gone to one HL7 meeting, this is years ago, and I'd learned that you could actually do it with standards and you could do something at scale. And so I went into, when I first started at New York Presbyterian, which wasn't even called that, and I'm like, we're doing it wrong. You got to use the standard thing. And I talked about it so much that the current CIO of the hospital did not call me Virginia. Literally, he'd say, good morning, HL7. And I got it written into every contract that vendors had to do HL7. And I would listen to cubicles nearby, because we had cubicles back then, and I would hear someone say to vendor Y, they'd say, you need to do this, you're saying this about HL7. Do you need me to transfer you to Virginia? No, we'll do it. I was bullied in elementary school, but all of a sudden I was like, yeah. So anyway, so awareness matters. Then someone said it here, motivation. You need to be really motivated. You need to have a business need where you need this more than anything else. It can't be like, oh, this is a fun, cute toy to turn on. Look, I can put an app in. You need to have that motivation. You need a strong enough motivation to rip out and replace legacy. Now, yeah, we can put layers on top of legacy, but if it works, why the heck are we touching it? If you got greenfield, which we try to do with FHIR, that's good. And then you have to have a business case. Hey, you created this wonderful app, but you don't have a business model to sustain it. It needs to really be a stay in business thing. Yeah, the government does a really great job tipping that, because the government makes people do things. So, and that is the US story. But the problem with that, again, and Doug's a recovering government person, and I was talking about this, is like Jeff said, we are sacrificing to the gods. We're turning on our FHIR APIs and we don't even know it exists. We did a multi-site research study with FHIR, and we focused on a particular EHR that we know had turnkey FHIR turn on like this, no problem. This was several years ago. And we did a whole bunch of sites, and the sites all argued with us and told us they didn't have FHIR. And finally, no one helped us. Finally, we got patients at all the sites to prove to them. I had to do my own site. They're like, oh, no, we're not in here. I'm like, yeah, we are. Look. Oh. No one would believe us. Okay. So infrastructure. You cannot communicate unless you have the infrastructure. So what? We all learned a new language today. Or so what if there was a new language if we didn't all know it, right? And if we didn't build the situation where we could do a meetup and talk to each other. That's why I have a problem with Brazilian Portuguese. I can't talk to anybody, So maybe we'll talk later. And I'll say, oi. Anyway, I get very nervous when I actually speak it, so I can't say anything. So infrastructure matters. You need the servers, you need the apps, you need all of that stuff, and lots about security, because people are going to shut the door when it comes to security. And human resources. You need people who actually know what they're doing. They need to be trained. That matters. What you're doing today, this week, is really important. Get that training. Policies matter. Big public policies matter, but little local policies matter too. At my hospital, We did this thing, interoperability, back in the day. We turned on a local network in New York City where like all the hospitals and the imaging places and doctors, they all connected to this network. And we really believed it in our organization. We had leaders in our organization that believed in it, but not enough leaders, because we have leaders that all compete in my organization. It's actually 3 competing organizations. It's quite interesting. They collaborate, but not completely. And the way it worked is you share data, but you get a consent from your patient to be able to query data from other places. So we were first in, we shared all kinds of data, it was great. 10 years later, we got the consents approved to be able, that's how it works, I'm not kidding. Do you know how many committees you have to go through in my organization? We are New York Presbyterian Hospital, a large network that, guess what? We don't have 1 medical school, but we have 2. We have all these top clinicians with sources of power. We have all these executives with sources of power. It's a lot to get through. Workflows. Workflow. Was it Jeff that you said workflow? All bow down to the workflow. I cannot tell you how important this is. We had data coming into us. This was, I don't know, this is another version of another regulatory experiment where data is brought into us. And then when it comes into us, we're supposed to do clinical reconciliation. We had no trouble sending data out on the transition of care, but bringing data in, that was another step on the clinician's workflow. Do you know what another step on the clinician's workflow means? It means doctors yell at Virginia. They do. And the doctors that yell at me are the doctors that are getting yelled at by other doctors. Just this one more. No, Virginia. Virginia, no. With all due respect, no. And you know why that is, right? My daughter, she's studying to be a psychologist. I'm so proud of her. And she had an internship, right? And she went to work, and then she did what everyone modern clinician does today, is, you know, she calls me up on the phone. It's 11 o'clock at night, and she says, I'm finishing my notes. And I'm like, so what are you wearing? And she's like, Ma, I'm wearing my pajamas. Uh-huh. You're doing pajama time. You've arrived. Do you know what pajama time is? It's because clinicians cannot finish their note-taking in the United States while in the office. It is horrible. Clinicians cannot get their work done. Clinicians in my classes say there's not a single click. I rarely do a click that actually has to do with clinical treatment. It's all to serve the regulatory gods. Okay, maybe they're a little jaded. I'm sorry, government people, and it's not every doctor, but, you know, I hear this. Workflow matters. You've got to integrate it in just the right way or it's not going to work. FHIR gives you the leverage for it, but it's not easy. Okay, I'm a little worried I'm running out of time. So I got 3-step process. You ready? 3-step process. I'm going to do the US government thing really fast. 3-step process. I'm going to make it so easy for you, right? No, but step 1, you have to find the burning need. The burning need. I need this yesterday. Solutions without problems are going to die a lonely death. And guess what? You got to find that burning need, and a person with power has got to feel it. That's really important. You got to seek out people who are CIOs, bigwig doctors, patients with loud mouths. We all know at least one of them. Find them because that makes a difference. Policymakers. Step 2. Explore the FHIR capabilities that exist in your context. You got to really know what's out there. It's actually not that easy to find sometimes. I know in the US I have tricks that I use, and I'm going to show you some of those tricks. It's not always that easy. We should make it more obvious, and I think we're getting better at that. Like, I think, you know, it's more easy to find an implementation guide now, but like, it's not always that easy to really know what we've got. Then you have to be like, my husband used to like to watch the Mad Max movies or MacGyver. You got to go and discover and harvest the infrastructure that's already been built. Servers, clients, go and find that. Find the implication guides in your area. Determine how your market supports FHIR. Like, really pay attention, like at the Pulse, like we have hymns, you pay attention. And then you have to research and capitalize on public policy, because that has power. You watch how they're encouraging FHIR adoption. Just call out one way is, see what implementation guides are out there. That's useful. And this registry, I think it calls out other registries. I don't know if I have the best list here, but. So we're going to do very, very quick U.S. government as a case study. This doesn't mean the U.S. government does it the best way. And, I just saw Brazil talk, and they talked about such a beautiful, simplistic design, and I was actually a little jealous, okay? But U.S. actually has history, because we've been doing this so long, we have stuff like all those V2 interfaces in public health, right, that kind of give us some legacy. And we have some very complicated rules that kind of contradict themselves that we deal with. But we do have infrastructure. Woo! So, 20-year history. 20-year history, we've been building this. Probably goes before 20 years. But I would say a very exciting milestone moment when, I was busy doing interoperability at my place. And the president at the time said, oh, I want to see my data in Florida, when I travel there from DC. And I'm like, oh, did he just talk about interoperability? How exciting. I didn't even necessarily like the guy, but I was excited to see him talking about interoperability. And this is when I began my love affair with US regulations. And I kind of went from reading HL7 standards to reading regulations. It is a transferable skill. And then from that moment, we started all sorts of initiatives. And then the big one is a law was passed called the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. And in it had a big part called high tech. You probably heard this before. But the big thing about high tech was that, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to tell providers that they've got to get EHRs. And actually, before that, this was already being worked on. There was like voluntary certification of EHRs. There was already a recognition that we need standards for interoperability. All that was going on. But we got to a point where we said, you know what? We need to actually pay providers to adopt EHRs. And then we have to threaten them that we're going to penalize them later. And that was the Meaningful Use Program. And there were also a whole bunch of other initiatives that came with that. And then we're going to make a whole ecosystem around because the providers they're the customers, right? The customer's always right. So the vendors want to make them happy, so they got to all get certified. Okay, so that's where we went. And there were also all these network experiments, and they were all incentivized, like local networks. Then moving forward from that, and this is sort of a very, rough timeline here, kind of, this is the story of your life, Virginia Lorenzi. Then we had another big law that happened, which was MACRA, and I'm really in the wrong time order here, but kind of before that came patient activism. Patients started standing up and saying, okay, you've got this stuff that supposedly has some interoperability in it, because there was interoperability. We were collecting data, we're putting in standard codes in, we're starting to share the data, portals were happening, there was some sharing, and the patient said, I can't get my data. I can't get my data. Give me my damn data. Somewhere along in here, the coin information blocking was invented because people said, I think someone said that those providers, they don't want to share the data. Those vendors, they don't want to share. They're information blockers. Don't call me that. That sounds like that sounds really insulting, right? So this whole concept that people are out there nefariously blocking, so that was very interesting, this kind of idea that even though maybe you have the infrastructure, it's blocking. And then with MACRA, they kind of renamed the whole Meaningful Use Program to Promoting Interoperability. They'll focus on interoperability, right? That'll make a difference. Let's just change the name. I mean, they put some other stuff in there. And then there were more network experiments, wonderful experiments. Still didn't get it right, but they're out there, and they're good. And then, coming out of that came a regulation that I'm a little confused here that actually said that we have 21st century cures. Another law. Wonderful. It's supposed to be about cures, right? But in there was a whole section on interoperability. It was so cool. And it said, interoperability access without special effort. And because of that, we got a requirement for API access. API access. Providers had to turn on API access. And because of that, we started having this concept of USCDI, which was like an ever-progressing, more data has to be released, including a big one was notes. Do you know what it's like to go from not releasing notes to patients to immediate release of notes? I got to do that in my organization. So cool. What a big change. I cannot tell you. Big change. And the government did help catalyze that because people didn't want to be information blockers because that factored in as well. TEFCA, the new network thing we're trying out, right? Which is going to work, right? This one's going to work. Put that out in the universe. Payor interoperability. The payers need to interoperate. Here, a payor with an E. So if you're not interoperating, just go with the O. And the pandemic made a big difference. Pandemic's a horrible thing, but because of the pandemic, everyone got on their portals, everyone decided that maybe we should actually need to share information, and public health might matter, interoperability. So that's where we are today, and I will tell you, I remember in 2019, I remember it. I don't know, I'm looking at Jeff here, but I remember the day in 2019. It was October, I think October, beginning of October 2019, across our country, FHIR APIs went on, because that was the last possible day you could get away with not turning on that API. Didn't have to be FHIR, but most vendors did FHIR anyway. Then eventually it had to be FHIR. So let's just look into it. I want to tell you how it works, okay? I'm the big provider here, right? Be a hospital, be a doctor's office. If I'm a doctor's office, I got to do the quality payment program. If it's a hospital, I got to do something called promoting interoperability. I got to do this. If I don't do this, it costs money, big penalties. I know, because people come to me, hey, Virginia, do we have to do that promoting interoperability thing? We do these other quality programs. Do we really have to do that? And I'm like, okay, I'll go to finance. We'll run the numbers. Okay, I guess we got to do that. And also, I'm like, yeah, we got to do it. It's the right thing to do. Hospitals have to meet promoting interoperability requirements or accept significant penalties. It is big. If you ever go on Hospital Compare and you see that a particular hospital doesn't have the little EHR flag, that means that unless they probably have just suffered a big penalty, just so you know. So if you go to some place and they don't have their FHIR API on, they've been dinged most likely. There's a whole bunch of areas that are not covered, but a lot of hospitals are covered and a lot of doctors by this rule. And you get, every year for promoting interoperability, you get this gift. You get a new sheet, and they raise the bar, and you have to meet the new requirements of the year. So we have new things, and we're running around trying to figure out how have we met the new things. And then in those requirement little details, there's a sheet that says you better turn on API functionality and tell your patients you've got it. Can't even hide it. You have to have it. And then also, it's got to do USCDI, like latest thing, so notes. You can get notes out of there, which is exciting. And then you have to use certified technology. So your vendor has to be certified to do this. Who? Vendors. Customer's always right. They're going to certify. So the leverage is CMS. CMS is making the providers do it and the payers doing it, okay? And then because the providers have to do it, the vendors have to do it. So there's the vendor. They need the certified technology, and the certified technology has got to use the standards. And the standards are US Core, bulk FHIR, whatever. That's how it works in the US. And SNOMED and LOINC, and just name your next favorite standard, terminology standard, all of that. I was so excited when I saw SNOMED, and these, oh, look at that, they're making us do this. Oh, good, thank you. I'm doing okay. And here is the current FHIR-related certification criteria. I literally will go in and read this stuff in depth to find, oh no, we have to do that, or even like, oh wait, we can get away with not doing that yet. Sometimes it's really hard to turn on this stuff. I can't tell you, it is really hard. So we just got to do whichever way we can. So I spend a lot of time hanging out at the chapel, and I'm not talking church, I like church too, but the chapel, CHPL, is the Certified Product Health IT list. I think Certified Healthcare Product List, I don't know. So this list tells you all the systems in the United States that have been certified and everything they've been certified for. So you can, if you drill in here, find every standard they have been forced to implement. Because to get that certification, not forced, they quote unquote voluntarily did it, but they did it to make us happy as providers. So it's a stay in business thing for the vendors, and it's also stay in business for us because we don't want that big penalty. But if you go to this particular link, or you navigate to the chapel, every API documentation for every certified provider out there that is dealing with the United States, that's their open API. Did you guys know that existed? All in one place. You don't have to go to the vendor's website. You can find it all there. Just letting you know. And if it's not there, they're doing something wrong. Also, another little cute thing that ONC threw in one of their regulations with 21st Century Cures, it had to do with telling our vendors that they had to meet conditions of certification and maintenance of certification. So And because what we found out is that even though FHIR APIs were available, there was a paywall, except for the patient case, for people to do this. So they said you can't charge too much and reduce the paywall. I remember back in the day I heard a vendor said, yeah, I interface with Epic and Cerner and Athena Health. I can't afford any more of these EHR vendor programs, you know, but that's not the same now. So, and then information blocking. Information blocking really put fear into people. No one wants to be an information blocker. There's a lot of penalties that we don't, you know, all the penalty rules aren't even out yet, but this made a big difference. For me, it came down from the top. People said, we need to do this, and I've been saying we need to be, we need to really think about this, and I had been saying, kind of gray, I don't really know, but I was saying this is really important. All of a sudden, and my CIO said, we know someone, she has it all figured out. I was like, I'd not figured out, but I got involved, and that's how I became friends with all the lawyers. So, information blocking. You will be penalized if in some way you are getting in the way of interoperability in the United States. You don't have, it's not like you will be penalized, you could be. Payors got to interoperate. There's a reg. More than one reg. They keep coming out, right, payors? Can't keep up with them. All the implementation guides they need are over there. And there's one example, no, I don't mean if I didn't pick your payer, I just found one. But they all have portals out. So what does this really mean if we think about it, okay? This means we have it. We have FHIR APIs. All of our payers and our providers, they have APIs turned on. You can use this stuff. And there are other APIs as well, but this covers a big area, okay? And that means that patient apps can get the stuff, provider apps can get the stuff, other apps can utilize or build information. Vendors have this benefit of, because the stuff is being turned on, maybe they can take advantage of apps that were built out there and have them as add-ons. And I have no idea what my third bullet says. That is not proper English. And after I wrote it, I still can't figure out what I meant. But anyway, the idea is that we can start doing more, like I'll use that module, and I'll use that module. And I can avoid vendor lock-in in some cases, but a vendor can also avoid that. They can get cheaper solutions that are kind of build-and-play things. We can really customize or innovate on our EHRs and our payer systems by having this. And that's a really nice feature. And this is really important for research, which includes multi-site research. Am I there? Okay. So I'm going to finish up quick. So I'm not going to cover. I just want to say, how can you play the game I've played? Pay attention to what the US government's doing. You can look at this slide later, when I get to questions. Pay attention to what AMIA and HIMSS is doing. And these are ways, and go to an HL7 meeting too, because the government people are there. US is not the only use case. Watch what other countries are doing. Here is the third. I didn't tell you the third. And this is what you're going to do this week. There are gaps. So when there's a gap, you work in community to build FHIR capabilities for all. All of these things, we need this built, including learning. Okay, that's part of it. Because the real value of FHIR is when you have that leverage. You have the motivation, you have your infrastructure, you have your capabilities, and you have us. You have community to fill the gaps. And we have to widen that community out. Does anyone have any questions? Not any ring. Oh, thank you. Oh, okay. We have one question. Thank you.
So you have been in the hospital system for a very long time. By the way, I've been with the payer industry for more than 20 years, and my family uses the healthcare quite a bit, plus my older brother is a physician. So just out of curiosity, like when a patient goes from your hospital, Presbyterian hospital, to another hospital, and let's say they have an MRI scan that they need to take it to the other hospital, and each of those hospitals, one is using maybe Epic, another using Cerner, is that data going to be shared? Let's say if the patient gives the permission, does that data get shared over the standard FHIR protocols, or is it more a proprietary, assuming that that sharing does work between the two different EMRs?
Well, everything's standardized. There's all the images. Do you mean the image or the narrative report?
Both, because
Yeah.
as a patient, if I'm asking from a patient perspective.
Yeah, in my experience, I will tell you that to this, I'll tell you what I do in my day job. I do things like, yo, Dr. So-and-so, you have a direct address. We can push this over. Those providers don't have it. They don't have EHR technology to do this. Yeah, it's 2014 technology. They probably have it. And you have a way to get the data. So sometimes there's a way to do it. Images are tricky because images are big. More and more image sharing is happening now, but at least the narrative report should go. It should, but it's amazing how much faxing is still done. You know, I mean, I crash calls and I'll say, we're going to do auto fax, and I'm like, with all due respect, leverage the technology from 20 years ago, whatever, 10 years ago. It's a shame. We build a lot of great stuff. The government tells us we have to do it, but the rank and file doesn't even know they have it. They don't have that they have the power to do this. So, you know, and I can help anyone who's trying to navigate the U.S. healthcare system as best as I can. I will help you as a you know, we both have to deal with the U.S. healthcare system. I will help you. I do this. When I have friends that get sick, I'm like, if one thing, go to the portal. At least you can read the notes now. It is not easy. I am a caregiver before I am anything else. And I have banged my head against everything to be able to navigate this system. It's awful. It's getting better. It always gets better. So, I mean, that's a charge to you guys. I put dollar signs at the end, but really it has a lot to do with, you know, how can we actually make a patient's life suck less, you know, and their family's life suck less, have better quality care, reduce the cost. I mean, there's so many benefits from good interoperability. And it's not enough to turn on a pretty API. You got to actually make it work at the end of the road. Yeah. Hi.
Yeah, hello.
Hi, how are you?
Hello.
Oh, hi.
Yeah, hey, Virginia. Yeah, it's Victor from Singapore.
Oh, hi, Victor.
Yeah.
We met on Hoover.
Yeah, I dropped a message, so I can't remember when I meet you, like, though maybe not 2010 H7 working group, maybe another one, yeah. So in fact, it's more like I want to share my experience, maybe also like to some ask, comment, opinion, like I think it's more like we have been nationwide implementing FHIR for the past, I think, the 4 years. Anyway, I'm also going to share our experience on Wednesday. So even though we have been using FHIR nationwide for the past 4 years, in fact, I'm still like constantly receive some feedback from the other side of, I'm in the IT, but other side of IT, you know, all the clinicians, all the so-called healthcare professional, like, because like still constant feedback when I say, all our system using HSM FHIR, then they always say, are you sure? I thought HSM is always very complicated. Because why I brought up this topic, because I think back 14 years ago when Singapore government started Singapore National Electronic Health Record, I think at the time HSM FHIR haven't invented yet, still in the transition HSM CDA, HSM V3, right? So I think we have quite a lot of like a long debate. I think it's more than like 1 year. I think eventually we decided for Singapore National Electronic Health Record, we decided not to using HSM standard. We're going to create a proprietary standard, proprietary IT format. So that's where like this one, I think the implication, the feedback I'm constantly still receiving. You know, on the other side, the clinician side, they always, HS7 is generally very complicated. So I'm trying to also like to consult you, maybe some of the bullet. How do you convince so-called the person who not familiar with HS7 FHIR to let them realize HS7 FHIR is so easy, so simple to implement from clinician perspective, not from IT perspective?
I don't know if I can do that answer in a short answer, but I will tell you it worked for me. Jeff, we were part of an experiment where they had like, okay, we're going to do this thing on stage. We're going to have you're like New York Presbyterian. We're going to get your FHIR API set up, and this other person out in California, different EHR, his FHIR API up, and this other person, and you're going to be on stage at a conference on Thursday, and you're going to demonstrate how all the data is flowing, and there were 3 apps that were connected. And I'm like, yeah, right. And no one knew they were doing this, so it wasn't their day job. They're calling me in the middle. I'm like, you need a test patient. You all need the same test patient. You know? And then we get on stage, and I'm like, yeah, this is going to work great. And then I get on stage, and it's like boom, 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 boom. Apps all have it. Everyone could just, I'm just like, how is this possible? This is magic. And I'm like on stage, that was easy. And you need to know, if anyone knows me well, I am not an easy customer. I will give you a hard time. So it is really easy. FHIR is like unbelievably easy. V3, it's like a joke. V3 is unbelievably hard. I used to have to do game shows to explain V3. Beautiful architecture, just a little too complex. FHIR is beautiful and streamlined and simple, but healthcare is hard. So that is a problem. So I could help you some. I had trouble figuring out how to talk to my CIO about why we should turn the APIs on, because it's going to be a security risk. But right before my meeting, I had an HL7 meeting. I'm walking along the Riverwalk in San Antonio, run into Josh. And I say, Josh, I got to talk to my CIO. Can you help me think this out? And he and I had a nice long walk about how I can convince my CIO that we should turn on the API. And I was able to make him feel secure turning on the API. You know, so it's doable. You know, but you have to demonstrate the case. You know, we can talk about it. But you have to keep doing it. You have to sell to positions of power.
All right, well, that's all the time we have. Thank you, Virginia, for
Yep.
such a great presentation.
Thank you. And I'm very interested in this leveraging and getting the value out of FHIR. So anyone want to chat about me anytime during this conference, please, let's talk about it. Because we're not doing this as a, you know, as an experiment. We want it to be, right? So thank you.
Thank you, Virginia. And you can also put questions in Hoover, and there's a place where you can Q&A, and we can answer those questions for you, or Virginia can answer them as well. And obviously, she's offered to meet with you. So please, thank you.
Thank you.